Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. And
Billy Simons.
Jeez Louise, what, do you got a delay there? COVID still got you down, buddy?
Yeah, I'm feeling much better now.
All right, yeah, Luke had a little COVID there. So the big question here, is Salt Strong for beginners, weekend warriors, or pros? The answer might surprise you because it might be a little bit of everything. And this whole question came about, as Salt Strong has grown over the years. We're about to hit year 10, if you can believe it. It has evolved a lot. If you guys don't know the original story, it started off as an apparel company. Like, we were essentially creating content and selling apparel, and that shifted into selling courses, and now the largest saltwater fishing club in America. And obviously, Luke and I weren't beginners when we did this. We were teaching and attracting people to the teaching. We got guys like Tony, who wasn't necessarily a beginner. He was, a bass angler and even winning some money in tournaments for bass fishing, but was struggling on that transition to inshore saltwater fishing. And a lot of our earlier members were those weekend warriors, and for the most part, that were just like us, right? You tend to attract people that you're similar to. And when they heard our story, right? Luke grew up as bass fisherman in Central Florida. And when we made the transition to inshore saltwater fishing many, many moons ago, many decades ago now, we struggled like a lot of people do if you don't have a guide, if you don't have someone to take you by the hands and show you what you're doing wrong. This is pre-internet, pre-YouTube, pre all this stuff that we're teaching, pre-smart fishing spot apps. So I do believe in the beginning, we attracted a lot of people like us that weren't beginners per se, but they were more beginners in inshore saltwater fishing and just wanted shortcuts. They just wanted someone to say, you know what, I don't have time to sit there for 16 hours on a weekend. I can't fish 8 hours each day on Saturday and Sunday. I got a life. I got kids. I got a job. I got stuff going on. And that really was the thing that started Salt Strong. We were solving for time, right? And now we've attracted all kinds of people. We have pros. If you go look at the Florida Redfish series, it's a pretty big series now that is all over Florida and even expanding outside of Florida now. The majority of the people on there, I'm not going to say names, but the majority of people in like the top 10 in terms of most tournaments won and money won are Salt Strong members. And even in the Power Pole Redfish, which I believe is the biggest one and has the biggest payouts, many of those people are Salt Strong members as well. So it obviously is not just for beginners. What are your thoughts on that, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I think with fishing and just like most other things, is that in general you're only as good as your network, and the network effect is a big part of it. Obviously, we started with doing fishing courses really for beginners, but it's literally now that we've been just talking about fishing every single day for almost 10 years now, it's impossible for everything not to get better. So like if you did try out like one of the courses 10 years ago, and if you think that's all that we have, like that's not even close. And so again, it's a lot of it's the network power of, and then on top of the education aspect, the tools now have been a total game changer, especially for anybody doing any sort of traveling. We have this called Smart Fishing Spots, where you can quickly find my personal favorite thing this time of the year, especially, is to fish oyster bars near seagrass. We literally have layers for both oyster bars and seagrass. And so I can literally within 3 minutes, I can scan an entire bay like Tampa Bay and find all of the oyster bars and automatically know exactly which ones are probably going to hold the most fish based on what the weather's doing. For many years, I never knew that. I never had access to that. I'd have to go find oyster bars the old school way, where I'd literally have to go fish a shoreline and then take note of whether the oyster bar is there or not. And just even rigging stuff too, like a lot of fishing, it's a series of seemingly small details makes a really big difference. So for anybody who wants to get better with artificial lures, if you're not doing this, make sure to do so. You don't have to join the club to do it, but make sure to be using, we call it the dirty deeks, but it's basically a bite tippet. And the whole premise is to make every portion of line as thin as possible to pull those bigger, smarter fish. And once I've been doing that, especially when I'm fishing Tampa Bay area where there's clear water and high pressure, that is a game changer. I've had multiple tests where I've done one rod with the light setup, like the advanced setup, where you're using a more advanced leader system. And then the other rod has the regular, like 10-pound braid to 20-pound leader. And that more advanced one catches the most and the biggest fish almost every time. Like it is surprising how much of a difference some seemingly small tweaks can make. And had we not just been engaging with a lot of other fishermen who love saltwater fishing, we would have never known about that. So
including many advanced anglers.
Yeah.
Right? Like Peter Deeks, who's been a member for many, many years. And what's interesting, when I see some of the haters, and by the way, we thank you. Every time someone's talking about us online, I don't believe there's any bad publicity, especially when we're not creating it. People just, they're for newbies or Googans or whatever. I look up quite a few of them. I haven't looked up every single one. I don't have time or care enough, but occasionally I'll look up, like, I wonder if this person's ever even been in the club or even a customer. And 100% of the time, they've never even joined. They don't even know what's behind closed doors. They just hate for the sake of hating, probably because they hate seeing people get better than in their area really, really quick and start leapfrogging them, is my only guess. But I going back to what you said about the network effect and learning new things, even when you're really advanced, that course that Peter Deeks did, the underwater bait forensics. I mean, if you guys don't know who Captain Peter Deeks is, he now charges over $1,000 to go fishing with him in a day, right? That means he's at the top of the top, right? Not many guides are charging over $1,000 for one day, and it's pre-tip, et cetera. I'm just letting you know kind of where he is. He's had multiple world records, still a couple still standing. That he's caught or has been caught off of his boat. And he did what no one else has done yet to this day, is take underwater cameras and videographers underwater and film all of the different baits, the live baits, on how they're rigged, both in current, not in current, different types of structure. And no one had done that. And we had more captains, full-time captains. And one thing we always promise is we're not going to disclose our members' names. That's just not who we are unless they're begging to. There were so many captains that signed up. We saw who signed up. We saw their emails. We saw some of the comments come in, and we got testimonials from many full-time captains, many that you guys would know and respect. And like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I learned something. And when these captains who fish live bait every single day, assume they know what it looks like, right? A pinfish rig a certain way through the nose or the tail underwater, you kind of think you know what it looks like, but until you see a camera showing exactly what it looks like and exactly where that pinfish is going, or that mullet or that crab or that shrimp, we did it with every single bait possible. That course changed like a lot of people's lives. I mean, that was the one that exploded with really, really advanced anglers, not so much the newbies. The newbies didn't care. They're just like, oh yeah, I'll just rig a shrimp the same way I've always done. That was the first time we had a lot of advanced anglers were spending money to get that course. You remember that was just mind blowing because no one had filmed that before.
Yeah, it's just, and none of it's earth shattering in itself, but just knowing exactly how that mullet is actually performing underwater based on the current flow and based on how you rigged it. A hook placement, just an inch one way or the other, totally wrecks it. And again, just it's those small details. That's why Peter Deeks is always catching literally last time we fished with him, he apologized that we didn't catch a 50-inch snook. We caught multiple over 40, and he was literally apologizing that we didn't catch a 50 in the 4-hour span. We're like, dude, like we just caught multiple 40s. Like, what?
Yeah, it was a pretty good day. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's just small details like that to go from basic to intermediate. That's a big jump, but the intermediate to like a really advanced person who's either consistently catching slams or consistently catching those big fish, they're not doing anything earth-shattering. It's usually just a series of a couple small things that make a really big difference as far as performance.
Yeah, and we have, I'm going to call them like steps to success or steps of success. And shame on us for not publicizing this better. We've sent it to a lot of our members, and I think we stopped doing it. We're about to start going on this big time. And I'll use a good example, Dave Ramsey. Whether you like him or not, There's a lot of people that love him. There's some people that hate him, just like anything. But he's got very, very clear steps to success. And like step number one is save $1,000. Like that's right. Because this is all about, if you don't know Dave Ramsey, he's all about saving money and getting rid of debt and all that stuff. So step number one is let's just get $1,000 emergency fund. And there's a lot of people that have already done that, right? Maybe they already have maybe you have 4,000, 5,000. You already passed that step. Cool. So you start at step two, and step two is, pay down your credit card or the top credit card. And it keeps going all the way down to the very bottom. The final step is have enough money where you can actually give to your favorite charity on a consistent basis. So that's a pretty awesome success ladder, or whatever you want to call it, or steps, right? To be able to go from being broke and probably in debt to be able to save 1,000, to be able to pay off your credit card debts, to pay off your house, to have no debt, pay off your cars, and then have enough money to start giving to charity. Okay, so on ours is to catch a fish, regardless if you're using live bait, lures, shrimp, doesn't matter, but in a new spot, right? Because we know that's probably the number one thing holding people back, is that they're fishing in the same 5 boring spots over and over again. So it's to use smart fishing spots, to use the tools that we're giving you as a member to go catch a fish in a brand new spot you'd never fished before. Because as soon as you do that and you realize, holy smokes, this tool helped me do that. I didn't have to study for 15 hours. I didn't have to do all this pre-trip planning. That changes everything. It changed it for us, right, Luke? When we first started exploring, like, one, it's pretty fun. It's adventurous to go out and try new spots. But two, man, when you catch that fish, you guys all know what I'm talking about, regardless of how experienced you are or not. But when you catch that fish, big or small, and it's the first time you've ever fished that spot, a spot you found on your own with the help of a tool, you remember, you're like, oh man, that was awesome. I want to do that again. And so that's really step number one. Then it goes into catching fish with lures, because I do think that's important. We're pretty agnostic to the whole thing. We just want people catching more fish and creating more memories is the ultimate goal. But I do believe, and Luke, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that it's important to be able to use both, right? In terms of control and freedom and being able to go out on your lunch break and just whip a lure out there and catch a fish, versus always having to rely on a cast net or buying shrimp or lugging around, a live well or keeping your bait alive in a boat or kayak. There's just something nice knowing that you can go catch a fish with a lure. And I think it's something everyone should learn how to do, regardless of their experience level.
Yeah, it's just being a complete angler where you're not reliant on having live bait, because I was that way for many years. So where I would literally spend hours in the morning catching bait, especially in the winter where bait was tough to catch. Because if we didn't have bait, I was like, oh man, like it's not even worth fishing. Like, why would we even bother? And back in high school and college, that was okay, right? Like I actually had the time to spend like an entire day fishing. Now I rarely can fish for more than 2-3 hours. And if I spend an hour or two catching bait, then that's the majority of the time, plus all the cleanup afterwards. So yeah, I think for anybody who really wants to be an advanced angler is be just as comfortable with lures as live bait. And I'm to the point now where like live bait just seems that when I do use it, my results actually go down, because it's so different, and it requires training. If you've only done one, it actually requires training to learn the other. And that's one. We have a lot of even full-time guides who've guided for many years, who really focus on live bait, have come and joined to get that artificial lure side of it. So they're already advanced angler. They just had a gap, and that gap was the lure part. And yeah, so we have, again, now we have over 50,000 members. There's somebody who's an expert at everything. And the cool thing about saltwater fishing that no one of us can ever be an expert across the board. There's always something new to learn. New lures are coming out, new rods, new reels, new lines, new technology. And there's a million different species, right? You learn snook, okay, boom, now let's go redfish, and now triple tail, and now tarpon and cobia. So it's one of those things that it is impossible to master, and anybody who thinks they've mastered it and stops trying to learn, you're going to get surpassed by those who are eating up the information and just interacting with other fishermen who are eager to learn and to get better.
Yeah, and speaking of that, kind of the next step to success after catching a fish with lures than an intro slam, in particular with lures. I think that's important. And we celebrate that in our community. I mean, there's new fishing reports going up every 5-10 minutes. And I saw one this morning. Guy got his very first slam, and it's with lures. It's so cool to see all the people like, man, that's freaking awesome. It's so cool. We absolutely love seeing that and celebrate it. And then the next step is just becoming consistent and confident enough where you can go catch fish every trip. That doesn't mean you're going to catch a trophy fish, and that doesn't mean you're going to catch a slam. But right, Luke, to have the confidence, we know that if we go out, even if it's a tough day, we always have areas because we know the trends. Like, hey, we know there's trout that are going to be in this spot, or maybe we can pluck off a snook on this dock because we know they're going to be here during this time. So it's to have enough information, right, and enough power and confidence where you can at least get some tight lines, even if it means hitting a bridge and getting some snapper. But where you know that if you were out there with someone, man, I'm at least going to catch some fish. That's where guides are, right? Guides are pretty confident that even if it's a tough day, because every guide has them, they know they always have some spots that'll produce some trout or some mangrove snapper or something where they can at least get people on tight lines. So that's kind of the next level.
Yeah, we call it, it's kind of like the newbie test, where if you were taking somebody who's never fished in their lives before and like can't even cast more than 20 feet, can you get them on fish or not? And our goal is to get you to that point. And what you'll find that it's really not nearly as hard as most people think, especially just knowing some trends. Like right now, did a post on trout. There's one strategy that if you use it, you're going to catch 10 to 20 trout every couple hours, regardless of skill level, because they're always going to be in a certain area and they'll always eat a certain type of lure, and you can do it without even bothering with live bait.
Where did you hear that tip?
That was on an Insider Report last week.
Ooh, man. What's the title of it so we can all go look at it for our members listening?
It was like the easiest way to go out and catch fish during the hot fronts. So yeah, very direct to the lesson. But yeah, there's just things like that again, had I just known that 15 years ago, that would have just totally supercharged my whole the whole fishing experience. Even like, we used to work and people would, let me go fishing with you, and I was so scared to take people because I literally didn't have the confidence that we'd actually catch anything. And it's pretty big kick to the ego if you take like a coworker, especially like a boss or somebody out, and they know that you fish a lot, and to go out and like get skunked, and then they're kind of looking at you like, I thought you did this a lot, like why did we not catch anything? And it's true. Like I literally I was scared to take a lot of people because I just didn't have the confidence that I could make it happen. And it's surprising how just now knowing the science of water and how fish biologically react to it, and then just forming a game plan based on the conditions. It is, for those who are just willing to put a little bit of time in to learn the basics, it is surprisingly easy to catch a bunch of fish, even in bad conditions.
Yeah, which leads us to the final step of success. So Luke just mentioned, he kind of touched on it. It's kind of in the middle of the two. One, I mentioned being consistent and confident enough to go catch, something on every trip, including with kids, coworkers, friends, etc. The final one, though, is to be so good and consistent that you can now be a coach, right? That you can now go coach your kids and your grandkids, that you can teach that next generation to keep fishing going, and that really help create experiences for maybe some kids that don't have dads in their lives, or don't have moms in their lives that had fished before, don't have grandparents in their lives that had fished before. Because to me, that's the ultimate thing. Very similar to Dave Ramsey's, being able to give back is the final one, right? To be able to give back to charity and to do good in the world, that is our final one. And honestly, if that bothers anyone, or anyone doesn't like Saltstrom because of that, and I can live with that. I won't lose sleep over it. Is it Spaceballs? What is it when they do the thing? And yeah, I'll do that all day long. But I've seen that happen over and over again. I know you have as well. And that's why when I see people saying, "Oh, Saltstrom only for newbies or beginners," like, what the heck you. And I always usually reply with a kind of a smart aleck response. You've seen it before, Luke. Is like, tell me you know nothing about Saltstrom without telling me you know nothing about Saltstrom, because we've had countless people who have gone from not catching many fish, maybe one or two saltwater fish in their life. So they were beginners when they came in, and are now full-time guides. I mean, Captain Justin Napier is one I can call it. He's been on our podcast and told his story. We've gotten multiple who make a living putting people on fish. They hit that final success path, if you will. That's awesome. That's what it's all about. And we have, like I said, countless stories like that. And we have some that are just grandparents that are now so good that they're teaching their kids. And not only that, I think this part's pretty cool because I struggle with this as a dad. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate with this, is when it's like Uncle Luke, my kids get a little bit more excited to go with Uncle Luke fishing. Maybe it's because he's a better angler. I don't know. But I think a lot of times it's when your kids like, oh, it's with my dad. But if it was someone else's dad or the cool uncle, they get more excited to do it. And so I think that part is cool when we have those members, especially like the grandparents we're seeing, that are able to go get some of these other kids that aren't necessarily theirs, might be their grandkids or their friends, and they're out putting them on fish. And all it takes is a couple of them to get hooked like we did. And now we're out here, in my opinion, changing the world and really impacting a lot of people through our love of fishing. But had our grandparents and not taught my dad, and our dad taught us and got us excited about this, we'd never be here on this podcast talking about it. We might be accountants or something really, really boring. No offense to accountants out there, but we might be doing something completely different than we are today. So I get really excited by that last piece, that piece of being able to go teach the next generation. I think there's just nothing more special. And we celebrate the heck out of those stories when we see them in our community.
Yeah. And it's really, I mean, that's really the ultimate cause, is to just share the love of fishing with others. That's the overarching the mission. And that is literally the only way that our fisheries are going to be protected for years and years to come. If people lose the interest, if not enough people are appreciating the waters and respect the waters, guess what happens, right? The more pollution in the water, there's trash everywhere. Nobody's picking it up. Nobody's upkeeping it. So the more people we all collectively can get out on the water, enjoying their time, the better our fishery is going to be for many more generations. That's the core reason of why we do this. That's literally why I give up all my spots. If my theory is if you're only as good as like 10, 20 spots, then you're probably not a complete angler. So I share my spots. The fish move around, right? If I could share spots, I literally share spots all the time in videos. And if you're not in that particular spot at that particular time, based on the conditions, it doesn't really matter because fish weren't going to be there. So so it's not about spots. It's not about lures. It's about just getting more and more people engage with fishing, have them enjoy the water, enjoy their time outdoors. And then that's just another person who's picking up trash while they're out there on the water, who's voting in the right politicians and voting out the wrong ones. Just to make sure that our beloved fisheries are here to last and not get taken advantage of.
Yeah. And speaking up on things like access points, which could be everything from state parks. You guys all saw what happened. That was the coolest thing ever. And there was a lot of buzz about it in our community, and a lot of us writing in to the powers that be, and even some elected officials saying, this is BS, this is baloney. And if you don't know the story in Florida, there was quite a few, I think 8 different state parks. I mean, beautiful parks, some like on the water, and they're talking about putting pickleball courts and golf. There's more golf courses in Florida than we don't need any more golf courses. And especially to do it on state land, which is an access point. It's a place people are going to spend time with their family outdoors, regardless if they're fishing or not. I thought that was awesome, how quickly that whole thing got shot down. I don't think it's going to be the end of it. I think we're going to see more and more of that crap. Pardon my French, but I think we're going to see more and more of that kind of stuff. It gets you fired up. I think anyone who appreciates Florida, especially a lot of us that were born and raised or have just spent the majority of our lives here, that's special. And I think the last few years, we've seen so much development. We've seen so many amazing, old, beautiful parks. I'm not talking about state parks. I'm talking about parks in general that we grew up with, right? Luke, in our old neighborhood, all the areas that we had access to just ride our bikes free and their little sand dunes, all that stuff is gone. It's all completely gone. There's single family homes everywhere. And I love the fact that because we're anglers and because we're conservationists and because we love being outdoors, that at least we have loud enough voices and enough voters, if you will, that get some of that stuff stopped, slowed down, et cetera. So I thought that part was awesome. And to your point, especially with this younger generation who have grown up knowing nothing but iPhones and devices and all the cool distractions, because let's be honest, they are cool distractions, right? I can only imagine if we had that when we were kids, if that's all you knew and your only like pleasure was inside a house on a phone, you wouldn't give two hoots about a state park being demolished by golf courses or pickleball courts or whatever they plan on doing with it. You'd be like, oh, I'm fine with being in my house anyways, my devices and my Xboxes. So I love that part of it. And I think that is on us, our age and above, people who have kids and grandkids, to really instill that love of fishing outdoors, call it what you will, with our kids. And speaking of that, you mentioned like sharing spots. Another thing that we are going to really start hammering hard are our core beliefs, if you will. It's Salt Strong. We have them. They've been on our site for years. We haven't changed them. And this is really our call to arms, if you will, like what we believe. And one of them is that, yeah, we believe in sharing shortcuts and spots. And what's funny, if you look at our hate mail, and this is kind of how this whole podcast evolves, we keep seeing these people, Salt's really for beginners. Like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. But the other one that we get, the hate mail, this is pretty funny. They're actually testimonials. So thank you. Keep sending them in. But it's from a lot of these old salty guys and some captains that are saying, you guys share too much. Like that you're the one hurting the industry because you're helping people too much. They're becoming too good of an angler, right? I mean, essentially what they're saying. And we're like, cool. Thank you. I'll screenshot your message you send and we'll use that as a testimonial. But that is part of what we believe. To Luke's point, life is too short, and we believe that fish do move and they have tails and no fences, and we're not afraid to give away some spots, and we're not afraid to give away shortcuts. It's everything we wished was around when we were inconsistent, because guess what? The more of that happens, the more that people are enjoying themselves and the more going out fishing, that helps the entire industry, right? That's more tackle being bought. That's more fishing licenses being bought, which goes to help support all the boat ramps, which goes to help support the FWC and all the every sort of officer you can imagine that is out on the water, from the Coast Guard down, all benefits from people being out in boats and fishing. It helps the waterways. It helps groups like Captains for Clean Water. All those things exist because we have a big collection of fishermen who are enjoying themselves. The second that starts shrinking, it makes us a whole lot easier to attack for people that want to end fishing, like the PETAs and stuff of the world. So yes, we do believe in sharing shortcuts and tips and tactics. And honestly, I believe if you don't, it's kind of more caveman like. I mean, that's kind of just the old school way of hoarding everything. I don't think that's the new future of growing fishing personally. And at least that's what we stand for. If you don't, so be it. But that's what we stand for. And I know our members do as well, because I see how helpful people are in our community. And as they go up or down, depending on if you want to look at this PDF that we're going to start sending in about these success steps, depending on how you look at it, if that ultimate thing is that maybe you come in as a weekend warrior, maybe you come as a beginner, and you get to that point where, man, I'm becoming really consistent. I'm catching fish every trip, and I'm getting other people out there, and then I'm sharing. That's where this magic is happening in Salt Spring. That's why we're growing so much. It's not about Luke and I anymore, and it's not even about our coaches. If you get in our community, I mean, it's anglers helping anglers, right, Luke? I mean, that's been really, really cool to see how many now really experienced anglers. Yeah, some that came in as beginners, awesome. Some that have just always been good and always want to be around like-minded people, want to have a big network. But that part is really, really special.
Yeah, so the network effect is incredibly powerful, and just an example of just why just the spread of fishing and the respective waters just needs to be expanded. Is now we have chapters which have been really fun to watch grow. And a lot of chapters are organizing cleanups in state parks. And so I went to one fairly recently and went out and literally just chose a random state park on the water. And we had about 30 people show up. We got trash bags, and it was shameful how much trash was along the shoreline. Absolutely shameful. There's so many people who just totally disrespect our waterways in public parks. And I guarantee those people who are just dumping all this ridiculous trash, they probably could care less about fishing, and just they've never been exposed to it. They obviously don't appreciate or respect it, and that's what's going to wreck the fisheries for everybody if we don't change that curve and start getting more people excited about it. And unfortunately, societies, it's especially the younger generation, it's immediate gratification, right? They've been grown up with having anything you want with a click of the button, you've got it. And so our duty that we feel is just to make successful fishing trip as easy as humanly possible so that we can have more and more people getting out there and respecting our waterways and just minimize the amount of people who are dumping trash out on the streets or in the water. I've been to multiple of these cleanups, and every single one, I'm just shocked at how much junk and trash is out there just getting thrown out by people who don't care about our environment.
Well, yeah, we'll end it on that one. And just a huge thank you to all the Salt Strong chapters. We have some amazing leaders in all of these chapters. There's now like 22 of them, I believe. And so if you are a Salt Strong member, I encourage you to join one of these chapters. It's free. It's just for members only. They meet once a month. They have great speakers. We had a lot of great captains and guides, and even people from, the different FWC and the Texas parks, et cetera, that come. And there's been one in North Carolina that's starting up soon, and they're getting some of their marine biologists there to talk about, kind of how some of the numbers have been skewed and why there's the issues there in North Carolina. So I highly encourage you to join the chapters. That's been really, really special. And that's just another way to, once again, increase your network, meet new friends. I've seen some really, really cool stories and friendships come out of that. And anyone else is doing trash, pickups or helping out in any way, shape, or form with our waterways, et cetera. Thank you big time. And then finally, come join us. Regardless if you're new, regardless if you're a weekend warrior, even if you're a pro or a full-time guide, I think there's always something to learn. And of course, at the end of the day, there's a lot of tackle savings. I think we're at 2.5 million that we've helped our members save. And that's not like an inflated number of, here's normal retail. That's like off the actual checkout, just from their insider checkout code, over 2.5 million for our members. That's pretty stinking awesome. So a great way to never pay full price for your tackle again. And of course, all the different shortcuts and cool things that come along with being an insider member. Now, as Luke said, the chapters is as well pretty cool. So that's all at saltstrong.com. Come join us. We'd love to have you, as long as you're positive and helpful and willing to kind of go through those steps to become a complete angler. We would love to have you in the club. Anything else, Luke?
Yeah, I would say, just regardless of skill level, we have a fishing school that's targeted. So there's a beginner, intermediate, advanced. And even if you're an advanced angler and I probably can't learn anything, just go through that advanced course. And I promise you'll get some nuggets out there that will make a noticeable improvement of your game, because it's literally been from 10 years of chatting with anglers who just love fishing. So make sure to give it a try.
Cool. That's it. Go to saltstrong.com. You current insider members, thank you so much. A lot of really cool things coming down the pike for you. So stay tuned. Be in the community. That's where we're going to start doing all the messaging there. We have private chat if you want to chat with any of us. All that is there at community.saltstrong.com, members only. Appreciate you guys so much, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was passed down to me from the days of old. Find us on the water if there was a way. It's been said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today. For he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fishing in our soul.